Did you think learning the drums was going to be easy? You get a local teacher or you start learning from YouTube, and before you know it, you're overwhelmed with things to practice and you're not getting better at any of them. Over the last 20 years, I've been a professional drummer while teaching hundreds of in-person students and over 17,000 online students how to play the drums. So to help make your drumming progress 100 times faster, here are 17 lessons I wish I knew 30 years ago. Lesson number 1. I had a 7-year-old student named Dave who came to me convinced his fingers were too stiff to play with a band. He'd been wanting to improve for decades, but kept telling himself he'd missed his window. 6 months later, he was confidently playing through entire shows abroad, and his grandkids couldn't believe how good his drumming was. Here's the lesson. You're never too old to become a great drummer. Your mindset is what limits you, not your age. Lesson 2. There are no levels. One of my students who considered herself a beginner asked me what level I thought she was. I pulled up a video of her playing from 6 months earlier, and she was shocked at how much she'd improved. But she was still calling herself a beginner because she was comparing herself to drummers with 20 years of experience. She was stuck in this mental trap that kept her from seeing her own progress. Once she could clearly see how far she'd come, she stopped being so hard on herself and saw even more progress with her newfound motivation. So here's the lesson. Everything we do on the drums is built on the fundamentals. Don't worry about arbitrary levels of drumming. Just focus on your growth. All that matters is that you're better today than you were yesterday. Lesson 3. Nothing is out of reach. Now, Mark came to me wanting to learn complex progressive drum parts he'd come up with in his head. He thought certain techniques were too advanced for him, and he felt like he needed to work up to that level first, and that's why he'd never tried. I showed him how to break down any pattern into simple 3 or 4 note cells, and suddenly those impossible songs became possible. Within weeks, he was playing parts he thought would take him years to master. And here's the lesson. Everything on the drums is just combinations of notes with your hands and feet. Break any pattern into small cells, slow it down, and you can learn anything today. Lesson number 4, know why you play. I asked one of my students, John, why he wanted to learn the drums, and he didn't give me a specific reason. All he knew was he just always wanted to. 6 months later, John was struggling with his motivation. And around this time, he realized what really drove him. He wanted to connect with his teenage son who was learning guitar. Once he acknowledged this deeper reason, everything changed. He started practicing consistently, and now he and his son jam together every weekend. I've always wanted to play drums is a good start, but you'll probably find that your real motivation comes from a deeper place. Do you want to play more confidently? Do you want to express yourself? To jam with your friends? Your deeper why will light the fire to keep you going. Lesson number 5, prove the haters wrong. One of my students almost quit drumming after he was let go from his band for not being good enough. He felt embarrassed and was questioning everything. He reached out to me and we focused on improving his technique and groove, and before long he was playing paid gigs around New York and feeling great about his drumming. Now here's the lesson. It doesn't matter if you're starting today or already playing shows. Don't be embarrassed about where you are. Be excited about where you're going. Lesson 6. Focus on less. I had a student named Jeff who was trying to work on single strokes, doubles, paradiddles, independents, rock fills, and Latin patterns all in the same week. He'd spend 10 minutes on each thing and wonder why he wasn't getting better at any of them. When I had him focus on just mastering single strokes for 2 weeks, really getting them clean, relaxed, and on autopilot, everything else started falling into place faster. Here's the lesson. Don't get distracted by practicing too many things at once. Focus on 1 or 2 things max until you can play them in your sleep. Quality practice beats quantity every time. Lesson 7. Get fast by playing slow. Medea came to me frustrated because she'd been practicing the same fill for weeks at performance tempo and couldn't get it clean. I had her slow it down to what I call Tai Chi speed, where she could analyze every tiny movement and get it perfect. Within 1 week of practicing this way, she could play that fill faster and cleaner than she ever had before. The lesson is, most drummers practice way too fast. The most important thing you can do to improve your technique is practice at Tai Chi speed, so slow that you can observe and fix every little thing. Speed comes from control, not from rushing. Lesson 8. Don't push through tension. Every time John played his single strokes beyond a certain tempo, his forearms would tense up like rocks. He kept trying to push through it, thinking he just needed to build endurance. I showed him that tension is your body's warning signal. It means you're moving incorrectly for that speed. We slowed down his singles until he could play them completely relaxed and then gradually built the speed back up. Now he plays twice as fast with half the effort. And since then, John moved to Nashville and is now an in-demand drummer touring with several acts around the country. And here's the lesson. If you ever tense up when playing, that's a sign you need to slow down and relax so you don't develop long-term injuries. Tension is not something to push through. It's a red flag telling you to back up and fix something. Now, if you're nodding along because you felt these same frustrations, I know exactly what that's like. And that's why I started the Drum Hub program, to provide a clear, structured path that builds fundamental skills step by step. My students are constantly surprised at how quickly they progress. So if you want to learn more about what it takes to join, I put a link down below. Lesson 9. do it in your sleep. Darren wanted to play fast, complex patterns he heard in his head, but the moment he tried, everything fell apart. I broke down how his conscious brain can only process a few things at once. You can't think about every individual note when playing fast. We practiced patterns at very slow speeds until his subconscious brain took over and the patterns became automatic. Once that happened, he could play them at full speed without thinking. The lesson is that our brains can't process too many things at once. Practice patterns slowly until your subconscious can handle them automatically, and speed will come naturally. Lesson 10. Practice makes permanent. Chris had been practicing the same groove for months, but it always sounded sloppy. He thought he just needed more repetitions. The real problem was he was practicing with sloppy timing, so that sloppiness was becoming permanent in his muscle memory. We slowed down, practiced with a metronome, and made sure every rep was clean. Within just 2 weeks, his groove was tighter than it had ever been. Practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes permanent, and that's a threat. If you practice with mistakes, those mistakes become habits. Practice with complete awareness, especially when working slowly, so you can catch and fix any errors before they become ingrained. Lesson 11. Do you ever feel like your arms and legs are fighting each other and you don't know how to improve your independence? My teacher told me 20 years ago, count out loud while practicing, and I tried it, found it way too hard, and stopped. I really regret that. Years later, I started forcing myself to count either quarter notes or subdivisions for at least a quarter of my practice time. It was like coordinating a fifth limb, and it wasn't easy, but it transformed my timing and internalization of rhythm in ways nothing else could. All my students do it now, and it levels them up fast. So the lesson is count out loud during at least 25% of each practice session. It's incredibly difficult at first, but it will deepen your understanding of rhythm more than anything else. Lesson 12. Don't fight the stick. Frankie was exhausted after 30 minutes of playing, and his wrists hurt constantly. He was working way too hard, manually lifting the sticks after every stroke. I taught him how to use rebound strokes and let the stick do half the work. Within a few weeks, he was playing twice as long without fatigue, and his speed increased dramatically because he wasn't fighting against the natural rebound of the stick. Nowadays, Frankie is the most in-demand drummer in his city, playing shows with multiple bands and having a blast. So the lesson is, let the stick do the work for you. Master rebound strokes so the stick bounces up naturally. It's like doing half the work to play the same number of notes, and you can play longer and longer without getting tired. Lesson 13. Learn the fundamental patterns. My student Owen would look at a complex drum part and feel overwhelmed by how much he'd have to memorize. I showed him something that changed his perspective. It's not a bunch of disconnected notes, it's just a few 3 or 4 note patterns repeated and combined. Once he saw drums this way, he realized he didn't need to memorize thousands of fills. He just needed to master a few dozen patterns, and he could play anything. When you mastered the fundamental patterns, every song is within reach. Everything on the drums is a combination of notes with your hands and feet. Learn the patterns, and you've learned everything. Lesson 14. Take a break. A student of mine was stuck on a challenging fill for 2 straight weeks. Every practice session, she'd try it and fail, getting more frustrated each time. So I told her to take the whole weekend off from the drums. She was worried she'd lose progress, but when she came back Monday and tried that fill fresh, she nailed it on the first attempt. Her subconscious had been practicing the part even while she rested. Here's the lesson. Taking breaks is good for your brain and good for your drumming. Our brains continue to process whatever we practiced while we sleep. If you practice carefully with good technique and timing, several days away from the drums can actually help make you more progress. Lesson 15. Consistency wins. I knew 2 drummers with opposite approaches. Tom practiced for 5 hours 1 day a month when he had time. Ben practiced just 15 minutes every single day, but even on busy days. After 6 months, Ben had improved dramatically while Tom was still struggling with the same problems. The difference wasn't the total time spent, it was the consistency. Your brain and muscles need regular reinforcement. So the lesson is, progress doesn't happen from grinding relentlessly. 15 minutes every day beats 5 hours once a month. Consistent practice gives your body the chance to build lasting habits. Lesson 16, trust the process. Sid started drumming just 6 months ago, but he kept telling me he wasn't noticing any improvement. He was frustrated and close to quitting. But when he watched a recent video of him performing, his mind was blown at how much his technique, timing, and control had improved. He was so focused on where he wanted to be that he couldn't see how far he'd already come. After that, Sid started recording himself to track his progress, and his playing is taking off. So here's the lesson. You are improving. You just need to zoom out to see it. Every drummer hits points where they think they're stuck. Record yourself regularly and review old clips every few weeks. You'll feel more confident when you have real evidence of your progress. Lesson 17. There is no perfect time. I knew a self-taught drummer who felt stuck but put off taking drum lessons for 5 years because the timing was never quite right. He didn't have the perfect practice space, his work schedule was busy, he wanted to save up for better drums first. You know what changed when he started lessons with me? His drumming. He was still busy, still had the same space, still had the same gear, but he was finally making real progress and he'd wished he'd started 5 years earlier. There's never a perfect moment when everything aligns. Life doesn't magically become less busy. If you've been waiting to really improve your drumming, let this be your sign. The best time to start is right now. If you want to make rapid progress, I've dropped a link below to the Drum Hub program where you'll get my methods and personal guidance to finally feel confident on the drums. Please don't let another day slip by. You can do this.